So then we have 66, 66, 70, 74, 78, and 82. Okay, so now that we have that filled in, part B, since the exam scores increased by what every time? They increased by 4 every time. So hopefully you notice that pattern. As the hours of studied increased by 1, we can say that there's a slope of what? 4 over 1. So we took the exam score over the number of hours studied, y over x, 4. And there's going to be what kind of relationship between the number of hours studied and the exam score? Hopefully you know that that's going to be linear. Also, because we had a linear regression equation given to us, y equals mx plus b, that's linear. Okay, so that's done. Since 0 hours studied leads to an exam score of what? 62. We can say that the starting or initial value is going to be 62. So regardless of if the student did no preparations for this teacher's final exam, we can estimate that they're going to get like a 62%. All right, use the model or table of ordered pairs to graph the equation t equals 4h plus 62. So you can use either one. You can either graph all the points or you can graph that equation. There we go. Whichever one you chose, go for it. D, where do the slope and starting values appear on the graph? Okay, so remember we said our slope was 4 and our starting value is 62, starting or initial value is 62. How do those appear on the graph? Well, the starting value is the y-intercept. Okay, so when x equaled 0, y equaled 62. So the y-intercept is our starting value, and our slope meant that the scores increased by 4 each hour studied. So we went up 4 units and right 1 unit. We went up 4 units from 62 to 66 and then over 1 hour. Look again at the equation t equals 4h plus 62. Where do the slope and the starting value appear in this equation? Okay, hopefully this one's pretty easy for you. But 4 is our slope, the coefficient of the independent variable. X is always our independent variable. And if I have y equals mx plus b, that h and the x are always going to be our independent variable. And then the y-intercept, or the starting value, is going to be this 62. It's our constant term, the thing that's like starting us out. It's not changing based on anything else. Okay, moving right along. Intercepts, the point at which the graph crosses an axis, is an intercept. We have a y-intercept, where the line crosses the y-axis, and we have an x-intercept where we cross the x-axis. Hopefully that isn't anything new to you. There's how you write x and y-intercepts if you need that. Question number 2, complete the table for this equation and then identify the slope and the intercepts of the graph of the equation 2x plus 4y equals 12. So I can just plug in the x value in order to figure out the y value. I can do that on Desmos pretty easily. So I have it plugged in for you. It graphed a horizontal line. So when x equals 0, y will equal 3. And then if I just backspace, plugged in 1, 2.5, okay, or 5 halves. If I plugged in 2, plugged in 2, x, I would get 2 as my answer, okay? My y value would be 2. And then I could keep doing that for all of them. I'm not going to tediously walk you through that, but there you go. Okay, from there, we'll figure out our slope. It's just the difference of the y values over the difference of the x values. I am decreasing by 1/2 each time. Okay, I can see it a little bit better down here if you're not very good at fractions. 1 to 1/2, 1/2 to 0 is minus 1/2 each time. And then as my x value just increases by 1 each time. So my slope is going to be negative 1/2. Really over 1, but I don't need to put over 1. That's redundant. Okay, then my intercepts, my y-intercept is 0, 3, and my x-intercept is 6, 0, where I cross the axes. All right. You could also rewrite the equation. You could solve it for y and get it in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. And figure it out that way. Here is your slope, the negative 1/2, and then your y-intercept is that plus 3. So you could calculate it that way, and then when you just wanted to find the x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y to get that 6. All right, diving a little bit deeper into the slope-intercept form, I think we're really just adding the dependent and the independent variable into this. You should know the y-intercept and the slope by now, I hope. Independent variable is our x values. It's on our x-axis. It's the thing that starts it all. And then the dependent variable is our answer. It's depending on everything else that's happening over here. So it depends on the slope, it depends on the independent variable, and it depends on the starting value, or the y-intercept. And that would be on the y-axis. All right, moving right along to number 3. Okay, for each linear equation, identify the slope and the y-intercept. Remember that the y-intercept is an ordered pair, not just a number. If I asked you for the y value of the y-intercept, you could give me just a number. But when I ask for the actual y-intercept, it does need to be written as an ordered pair. If you need more help, you could always look at the example above here, and they'll kind of walk you through a little bit more than I am. I'm just kind of assuming you already know what you're doing here. So y equals mx plus b. M is my slope, negative 6.5, plus b, that's the y value of my y-intercept. So written as a coordinate, it's going to be 0, 2.5. Then for the next one, y equals mx plus b. I could kind of rewrite this as y equals negative 1/3 x, plus 0. And then from there, I could say that my slope was, that should be negative 1/3. And my y-intercept would be 0, 0. Okay, so even though it erased, make sure that you do put in that negative 1/3. The answer key is also wrong, so take note of that. Next one, there is no x value listed here, so it would be like saying y equals 0x plus 4. So my slope will be 0, and my y-intercept will be 0, 4. And then for the last one, it's just written a little bit differently. Y equals b plus mx. Okay. So my slope is negative 2 because it's attached to the variable. And my starting value, or my y-intercept, is 0, 100. And then I think we have one more left to do, number 5. Let's scroll, that's number 6. Here we go. For each problem, use meaningful variables. So just assign a variable that kind of makes sense to you, is what they're asking, to write a linear function to model the situation. Then you'll interpret the slope and the y-intercept in words, relating it to the problem itself, and then identify which variable would be on the horizontal axis and which would be on the vertical axis if you were to graph the function. So horizontal would be your x-axis, vertical would be your y-axis. So that's all we're doing. All right, model the cost if you buy an iPod for $200 and download songs for $1.29 each. Okay, so I wrote C equals $1.29 S plus 200. Remember, I'm going to be using my meaningful variables. So C equals the total cost that I'm spending, and S equals the number of songs that I'm downloading. Because the reason I wrote it like this is because the cost of my iPod, I'm only buying one iPod, so I'm only paying the $200 one time. I don't know how many songs I'm going to download, so S represents some number of songs that I'm downloading, and then C will be the total cost, and that depends on how many songs I download. Okay, so from there, we'll identify the slope, so my M value, which was $1.29, which is the price per song. The y-intercept is my B value, so 0, 200, and it'll be the cost when 0 songs are downloaded, or just the flat out cost of the iPod. Then, which values would be on the x-axis and which values would be on the y-axis. X values represent the number of songs I'm downloading, S and X songs, okay? And then my y-axis would be the total cost, because those are my y variables. Okay, similar to part B, model the weekly salary of a salesman if he earns his salary in a combination of his base salary and commissions on sales. So each week his base salary is $500 and he makes $50 for each sale. So I wrote that as S equals his base salary of $500 plus $50 for each sale. Remember, Y equals MX plus B. I know this is written backwards, but that's okay. S will be the weekly salary, and N will equal the number of sales that he made in each week. So my slope, my M value, which is attached to my variable, is going to be the commission per sale. So he's making $50 per sale. So my slope is $50. Oops, there's a mistake here. This should be 50, not 5. My bad. And then my y-intercept will be just his base salary, which is 0, 500. His salary, even if he doesn't sell anything, he's still walking home with $500 at the end of the week. And then my x-axis will be my x values, which is the number of sales he made. And my y-axis will be his weekly salary, including his base pay and the commission that he made. So his total weekly salary. And that concludes the notes for today. Go ahead and start your homework.